Hello and welcome to the Motorsport podcast. Today's guest is a snowcross legend and a multiple race and X Games winner, none other than Tucker Hibbert. Hello Tucker and welcome to our podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
And how are you and how are you keeping yourself busy during the off season?
I'm doing pretty good. I've had a wrist injury at the end of the season, so right now I'm kind of focused on healing up. I had to have surgery on my wrist, and so I'm not able to do my normal activities, I guess, in the summer, which would be mountain bike racing and motocross racing. So right now I'm just doing as many other things as I can around the house just to keep busy, and lots of projects, and we're busy working on our snowmobiles for next season, and always lots to do, but unfortunately not doing any mountain bike or motocross racing right now.
So how did that accident actually occur? Did you land too far, or how do you injure it?
Yeah, exactly. I overjumped a jump at one of the races towards the end of the season, and just kind of flat landed. And it's an injury that I had done before. About 5 years ago, I did the same injury, and so I just redid that injury. I tore 2 ligaments in my wrists, so I had surgery to repair those ligaments, and now I'm just waiting for them to heal.
The 2015-16 Snocross season was quite good for you. How would you describe the season that was?
Yeah, it was awesome for sure. I mean, I was able to achieve my main goals, which were to win the X Games and to win the iStock National Championship. So obviously getting both those accomplishments were my goals, and I was super happy with that. You know, I think I ended up with 12 race wins out of 17 in the National Series, so pretty happy overall, you know, with my performance, and everything went good. I mean, I had a lot of fun, which is also important. You know, it's been a great last couple seasons. My team's been working together really good, and obviously having success makes it a lot of fun, and just kind of looking forward to more of that. You know, I feel like this last season I was as strong as I've ever been as a rider, and my equipment was good, and we couldn't have really asked for too much more.
It's quite impressive, I have to say. Also, is it possible for you to describe how much and how cool it was to reach a milestone with 100 wins like you did in Deadwood?
That was awesome. You know, to get 100 wins was really cool. It you know, especially because I didn't win for a couple of weeks leading into that race. I was stuck at 99 wins, and you know, to finally break through with the 100th win and to do it at Deadwood was awesome, because I got the whole shot and fell in the first turn and had to come from last back to first. So it was a pretty exciting way to do it.
About you, as a child, you grew up in the Idaho area, Driggs, if to be more specific, if I'm not wrong. But a few things I wonder is, can you tell us a few things about you as a child, and if growing up in that area was in any way beneficial for you, since you had a desire and an interest of motorsport?
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, growing up in Idaho is obviously a big part of who I am, and I grew up on a farm. My dad and his brothers and my grandpa, they were all farmers, lots of potatoes and grain and wheat. So, you know, growing up in a farming environment, you know, as anyone knows about farming, it's a lot of work, and even though I was pretty young, we were expected to do, you know, a lot of work around the farm and help out a lot. So I think that was important, because it helped me understand, you know, how important it is to work hard and to, you know, never be lazy, always trying to get as much done as you possibly can, and being thankful for what you have. So for me, I think that was kind of you know, a starting point of my career for having success in snowmobile racing, was just learning how to work hard and do whatever it takes to get the job done. And my dad being a farmer, you know, kind of had that mentality, and he was also a racer. So I grew up in both environments, farming and racing, and I think just being around him and watching him race and be successful, and seeing what he did to prepare for racing definitely taught me, you know, how to do my job today the best that I can.
It's quite interesting to hear you say that, but at what age did you really get exposed to the racing? And why racing?
Well, I got exposed to racing just through my dad, because him and his brother and, a lot of his friends, they were all racing when they were younger. So when I was growing up, I was just around racing because that's what my dad did, and that's, what I was doing. He would take me to the races, and I would be there watching and trying to help a little bit. And, I started riding three-wheelers and little Arctic Cat kitty cats when I was about 2 years old. So I got started really young and started racing somewhat serious when I was about 8 years old. I think 8 years old was my first snowcross race. So, basically from a real young age, starting around 8, I was hooked into racing and just couldn't wait to be able to compete at a lot of different events. And I was kind of young, so I couldn't sign up at all the races. There was only certain ones that had classes that I could race in. So I think that just kind of fueled the fire, because I wasn't able to do it. I had to kind of wait for a while and get excited about it. So, 8 years old was my first snowcross race, and then I got, slowly got more serious about it from there and started racing a lot.
I think that a lot of people, especially here in Sweden, wonder is why Arctic Cat, and is there something with Arctic Cat that is really sort of speaks to you and really helps you as a rider to get better and better and better?
Well, basically I started racing Arctic Cats because my dad did, and he raced Arctic Cats when he was younger, and then eventually started working for Arctic Cats engineering group, and we moved to Minnesota and started living in the town of the Arctic Cat factory in Thief River Falls. So, I grew up in Idaho when I was younger, and then moved to Minnesota kind of right when I started racing and riding a lot, and just really fell in love with snowmobiling and the Arctic Cat family, just my dad working there and being around all the people at the factory. And I just grew up in the Arctic Cat family. And, now that I'm racing, and I have been racing for a long time with Arctic Cat, I can't imagine, working with a different company. Everyone at Arctic Cat is so passionate about racing and building the best snowmobiles possible. And it's just it's one big family, and everyone has the same goals. And I feel like it was the perfect fit.
The slogan for Arctic Cat is "Share Our Passion." Is that something that riding Arctic Cat that you really can feel that this is made by people that are really passionate about what they're doing?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly true. Everyone that builds the Arctic Cat snowmobiles and that rides them, everyone knows that passion, and I think a lot of that comes from some of the key people there, like Roger Skyme and my dad and Russ Ebert and all the engineers and the people that I've grown up around at Arctic Cat, and now kind of a newer generation that's taken over and taken Arctic Cat to the next level. So it's fun to see the different people and the passion that they bring and the ideas that they bring, and it's been a lot of fun to see the progression of not only Arctic Cat, but the whole sport of snowmobiling over the years.
You, of course, being the son of Tucker Hibbert, what has he taught you that have made you into such a strong and defining rider?
Well, I think the main thing is just hard work. That's the theme of my racing and our team, and everything we do is just doing whatever it takes to be prepared and not being lazy and going and doing whatever you can to make yourself better. And that was how my dad approached racing when he was competing. And I think he's just taught me, the importance of hard work and then, going to the races and seeing that hard work pay off. And that's what fuels us to keep going back every year.
This is, when I'm visiting some snowcross races here in Sweden, there's for some new people that are experiencing this sport for the first time, how would the big T-Train Hibbert explain the sport of snowcross?
It's an exciting sport for sure. I mean, it's similar to motocross and supercross, with all the bumps and jumps and tight corners and intense racing. And I think it's unique in that it's so dependent on the weather and can be so extreme, from not much snow and warm temperatures to really cold temperatures and blizzards, and it takes a unique person to be a snowmobiler and especially a snowcross racer. But I think it's one of the most exciting forms of racing there is, and a lot of fun for spectators to watch and get involved in.
Let's talk your career. Your record of snowmobile throughout the years is quite outstanding. You have 9 consecutive X Games goals, 10 National Pro Snowcross Championship, 119 to 120 Pro wins. You're a 2-time world champion. You're a 2013 Clash of Nations Pro Open champion. But hearing that, isn't it hard sometimes to process and also, as that is happening, have both feet on the ground?
Yes and no. I mean, I think for me, the main focus is getting better each race and each season. So, I try to not really worry too much about what I've done and the accomplishments I've achieved. Obviously, it's important to be thankful for that and to, look back and understand how it happened and why it happened and what the things I did right to make that possible, so that I can figure out how to get better moving forward. But as a team, we enjoy the race wins and we enjoy the championships, and we celebrate that, but we don't hang on to that. We move on pretty quickly to the next thing and figure out how to be better. And I think that's important to not get hung up on what you've done, but keep looking forward.
I'm really looking forward to see the 10-peat coming very soon, I have to say.
I'm going to be working hard, That's the X Games has been really good to me, and to get 9 in a row, it's really awesome. I mean, I'm thankful for that opportunity, and I know that one day I won't win that event, so I'm just going to, keep working hard to be as best prepared as I can and enjoy the wins I've had so far.
And spinning on that very subject, is there any specific program that you are going through to keep yourself so far ahead physically?
Not really. I think I've learned over the years what I have to do to be prepared, to compete at snowcross at the highest level, and to keep myself at the top of my game, but not, pushing myself too far and overworking and getting burnt out. So I found a good balance, and I really haven't changed my approach to training and practice and preparing for the season too much over the years. But, I think I've had so much experience so far that I can adapt and make changes and do what's necessary to be prepared, but nothing really crazy or different than what I've been doing the last probably 10 years.
We talked a little bit about your dad and his importance in you growing up. But he's also on the Team 68 team. So what assets does he bring to the team?
Well, he is a huge part of my racing success, and just being, like I mentioned earlier, being around him when he was racing and learning from him has made a huge difference in my racing today. And now with him currently being on the team and such a huge part of the engineering and development and mechanical side of my snowmobiles, he's able to take everything he's learned over the years through his own racing and experience with ArctiCAD and engineering, and really apply that to my race team. So he's first and foremost, he's my dad, and it's super fun to have him at the races with me and experience the success that we've had together and do that as a family. It's really important, and I think a little bit unique. Obviously, racing is kind of a family sport, and a lot of times that's what it is, a father and a son and mom and grandma and grandpa and people there cheering them on, and it's really no different with our team. We're a big family, and everyone that's involved with Team 68 is either literally family or basically have become our extended family. So we're really close, and we all get along really well and enjoy what we do. And it's been a lot of fun to be able to share, what I've done so far with my dad and have those memories.
Unbelievable. I can imagine also it's a lot of a good relationship to have as you progressing throughout the season, to have people that you trust and have people that you really know around you as the season just keeps on tumbling on.
Yep, that's for sure. It makes a huge difference to have people that support you, and obviously that's a big part of success is having a support network and a group of people that are passionate and there to help you, whether you're winning or losing. And I definitely feel like I have the best group of people possible to support me and help me be the best that I can be, and at the same time push me to be better and not let me be lazy.
As I mentioned earlier, you have a pretty impressive CV both nationally and abroad. But how do you find racing outside of the U.S.?
It was a lot of fun. I haven't raced overseas for probably 3 or 4 years now, but we did do quite a bit of overseas racing with, I think, 2 races in Sweden, the World Championship once and Clash Nation once, and then we did the World Championship in Finland and in Russia. So, I've had 4 different experiences racing overseas, and it's been a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, to transport all of our equipment overseas to those races and to make sure we're prepared for the different types of rules and the different types of racetracks. So it's a lot of fun because it's a challenge for us to do that. It's something a little different than what we're used to, and I'm hopeful that in the future the scheduling will work, that I can do at least a couple more races overseas, and as a team and a group, we really had a lot of fun doing that. Aside from the racing, just the traveling and the whole experience was a lot of fun for us, and we created a lot of good memories. So it's something that I'll definitely never forget, and it was a challenge. It's the racers overseas, when they're on their home turf, they're definitely riding with a little more passion and energy, and it was a lot of fun to go to those events and face new competitors and new challenges and just go there and try something different.
But you as a pro rider over there in the US, coming over to Sweden or Scandinavia more specifically, what sort of differences could you pick out from the way you ride and the way your tracks are laid out?
Well, it changes. Each time I went overseas, the racetracks were a lot different from the previous time, so it's hard to really know exactly what you're going to be facing when you get there. But for the most part, I think the Scandinavian tracks are maybe a little bit higher speed and longer distance and not as big a jumps, a little bit more like a motocross track versus a supercross track, just more spread out. And one of the biggest differences and challenges was racing without studs. Not only does it give you less traction when you're riding the snowmobile, but it makes the racetrack shape up differently. It doesn't change as much as it does in the U.S., where we have studs and the snow gets dug up a lot deeper and the holes get deeper. So the racetrack really changes throughout the day differently than it does overseas. So, there's a lot of differences, but at the end of the day, it's still racing snowmobiles, and there's a start line and a finish line and a whole bunch of guys that want to win. So it's just about adapting to the small changes and figuring out how to be successful.
You talked about the World Championship in Sweden. I was actually there for that race, and I remember standing there watching with my dad, and he pointed out how good you were searching for different lines and how you just worked your way through the field. What can you tell about the 2010 championship in Mala?
Well, that was my first experience racing overseas, and so it was everything was new, and I was learning, every lap about the track, and just the whole experience was new and exciting. So it was a lot of fun, and I think that was probably the best racetrack that I competed on of any of the overseas events I did. It was a lot of fun with the up and down hills and a really long layout. So it was one of my probably more favorite races overseas, and obviously to win my first world championship that day was really special and exciting. And that was one of the first times I raced against some of the guys that I'm racing against today, like Emil Oman and Peter Narsa, there's a lot of guys that I raced against and saw for the first time that I now race against almost every weekend, and so that was a lot of fun to see that.
I have to say that we were so glad to have you. You are not only does it seem that you are so down to earth, you are working so hard, and also that is a very, very small town, and that event, having you there, really, really brought a lot of people to that area. So I don't know how much they have been giving you credit for that, but it was great and a lot of fun to have you there. So when it comes to the racing and finding lines, how much is that down to racecraft, and what can you tell about that? How important is it to learn the track quickly and be able to figure out where the quickest way to the finish is?
Well, it's super important in snowcross racing because the track changes so much, not only like from your practice to your race or from one race to the next, but every single lap the track changes, and you'll come around a section and the line that was the fastest one lap ago might be totally different the next lap. So you really have to learn how to figure out the track as it's changing, and also have a plan in your head before the race of how it might change or how you think it'll change. And I think a lot of that comes with experience. Like I've raced for so long that every race is different, but there's so many similarities to tracks from years past and how the track changes, and you kind of know what to expect. And for me, I think I've been racing quite a long time, so that I've had a lot of experience with different racetracks and different snow conditions. So I think that helps me to figure out where the fast lines are and how the track's going to change, each weekend. And definitely, if you don't know what you're looking for and how to adapt to that, it's a big disadvantage. So I spend a lot of time trying to learn the racetracks and focus on how to be ready for what might change.
Wasn't it that in Deadwood you weren't first? You had to really work for that 100th win.
Yeah, I fell in the first turn. I tipped over and started in last place. So that was a race where for sure I had to learn how to adapt to the racetrack. That's such a small racetrack also that it changes even more than normal. It's so small and you do so many laps around it that it really changes a lot, and the sleds really dig up the holes, and on the track like that, not only does the racetrack change a lot, so you have to move around, but there's so many riders that are taking the fast lines and a lot of times going where I wanted to go. So I had to learn how to move around and make a slow line work for a pass, because the fast couple lines maybe aren't available because there's so many people there. So when you get into those real small, tight racetracks, it gets really challenging, to really understand what's going on and make passes when there's so many riders.
But what advice could you give to young and upcoming talents that wants to pursue a professional career in snowcross racing?
Well, it's really no different than anything in life. If you want to be successful, you have to learn how to work super hard and make sacrifices and do the right things. I think one of the most important parts of being successful in snowcross is having a really good team around you and group of people, or at least one person that's as dedicated to being successful as the rider is. And as soon as you start adding people to your support group that have the same goal and the same amount of passion, and you guys are working towards the same thing, it's pretty much guaranteed that you're going to have some success. So you just really got to focus on doing the right things, and it's not always about working the hardest, but working the smartest and doing things that are going to, really looking at the whole program and doing the things that are going to help make you better, and pinpointing your weaknesses. And it's like I said, it's the same thing with anything that you want to have success at. You just got to really approach it with a wide view and understand what you have to do to be better and do the right things.
Also, I have gotten this question quite a lot of times here, and It is about when did you get approached, or how did the story with you associated with Monster Energy? How did that story all come together?
Well, I was racing motocross a lot, and at the time that Monster got started, so I was just kind of involved in that that sport, and that's kind of where Monster grew from, is the motocross and supercross world. So I just met the right people at the right time, and was fortunate enough to be one of Monster's first athletes, and really help kind of launch that brand and help it grow. And I never imagined that it would turn into what it is today. You know, that company's so big and so successful, and I've been, blessed to have them as a sponsor for many years, and it's a lot of fun to work with them. And, you know, they're a lot like Arctic Cat, super passionate people that love what they do and love racing, and being a part of Snocross is something that they're really passionate about. So I'm just honored that we've been able to, work with them for so long and help grow it to what it is today.
Also, in 2012, Arctic Cat came out with a brand new chassis. Is there anything that you feel specifically riding that in comparison to the older chassis that is making it easier for you out there in the gnarly stuff?
Yeah, the new chassis is definitely a big advantage over the old chassis, especially in the higher speed bumps and the big bumps where you're just kind of smashing through them, not necessarily landing smooth or doubling and clearing stuff, but if you really have to kind of skip across the tops or pound through stuff, which is something that the Scandinavian riders do really well. That change in chassis in 2012 really helped us to be able to do that. That was one of I'm more of a technical rider that likes to land smooth and perfect everywhere, but a lot of times you can't do that. You don't have that choice, and you just have to carry your momentum through some bumps and just kind of pound through them. And the new chassis definitely was a huge improvement in those types of situations. And I think one thing that we struggled with the improvements it made through some of the bumps, it hurt us a little bit in the corners the first couple of years there, and it took us a while to really get our cornering back to where it was with the previous chassis. So, with everything, there's give and take, and you have to find the right balance. Unfortunately, you can't have everything working the way you want it to, because it's a lot of give and take. But I'm really happy with the sled, that we were racing last year. The Arctic Cat race sled that I've had the last couple of years has been just amazing, and I think we've found a really good balance of handling and cornering, and we're always working to improve and get better, obviously, but I feel it's the most advanced competitive race sled that I've ever been on, and I'm definitely excited about riding it again next year.
I can imagine. So you touched a bit on X Games. Unfortunately, here in Sweden, the broadcast for that isn't really great, but for sure we know that you are doing pretty darn good there. And but how would you explain X Games? Why is X Games so special, and why do you love going there every year?
Well, it's just a unique event. It's not the normal national series. It's a one-off race that brings a lot of excitement, and for me, I started racing X Games when I was 15, and I won that first time, so that really, made it a special event for me, and I think just, the excitement of X Games and the ability that they have to expose our sport to so many people, and to so many people that don't have the chance normally to watch snowcross. I think it's just an awesome opportunity for us to open the door to new fans and new people to see what snowmobiling is and see what snowcross is. And, when any little kid gets excited about X Games, it's like just super fun to watch and follow and be a part of. So for me, starting at 15 years old, X Games was awesome and what I wanted to do. And ever since then, it's been a big part of my career and my life racing at X Games.
Okay, I'm Swedish, so of course we can't forget to talk a little bit about the Swedes and the Scandinavians here. You touched a little bit about the riders you've been racing, Johan Lidman, Emil Oman, Jon Stenberg, Peter Narsa, and Adam Renheim. Competitors like that, how do you rate their performance overseas?
I mentioned a little bit earlier, that when I raced in Sweden and Clash of Nations and in the World Championship, those guys definitely go faster at home, and that's to be expected. They're a little bit disadvantaged when they come here to race in the U.S., just because things are so much different, and you're in a whole different environment and atmosphere, and the racing is different, and the sleds are a little different, so there's a lot of differences. So, just like when they come here to be competing with us in the U.S., it takes them a little while to get comfortable and to figure everything out and to ride at their full potential. And that's a little bit the same way when I would travel to Sweden. So it is fun to be able to do that and see the differences in the riding styles and the way that they compete here versus in Sweden. So it's been a lot of fun, to race some of those guys, both in Sweden and the U.S. And I think, now we're seeing Adam Renheim and Peter Narsa and Jon Stenberg, those guys are starting to get really comfortable here in the U.S. and they've been racing here long enough that they, that they're figuring out all those things that are different and they're really starting to ride at their full potential. So it's been a lot of fun to see them, get a lot better over the years and now we're up there competing for race wins.
Tucker Hibbert, it's been an absolute honor having you on the Motorsport podcast. I wish you all the best for upcoming seasons, and thanks you for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.